Every gilded cage is built with walls of comfort. The only question is what you're paying for them.
Today, we're going to deconstruct something that's all around us, but designed to be invisible: the architecture of control. We're going to pull back the curtain on how systems of influence have evolved, all the way from the subtle psychological games that shape our choices to the massive, sprawling tech that's literally managing our reality. So let's learn how to see it. Here's the roadmap. We'll start with the psychology, the why behind why we comply. Then we'll jump into history's playbook for manufacturing reality. After that, we'll look at the economic pressures that kind of box us in. And finally, we'll see how all of this is converging in the digital age, before we talk about the most important part: how to build your own mental defenses against it all. All right, so to really get a handle on control, we have to start with our own minds. It turns out there are these fundamental conflicts hardwired right into us that make us, well, pretty vulnerable to manipulation. It creates a system that can feel rigged right from the start. And this quote, man, it just cuts right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It forces you to stop and ask a pretty uncomfortable question about your own free will. Are my decisions really mine, or are they just the end result of 1,000 little nudges and pressures that I never even saw? Okay, so here's one of those core human conflicts: the deep need for truth versus the even deeper need for belonging. We are wired to be part of a group, right? But here's the catch. Groups survive because of cohesion, not necessarily because they're accurate. That means loyalty often gets rewarded way more than honesty does. Speaking an uncomfortable truth can get you kicked out of the tribe. But conforming, even to a lie, well, that offers safety. And this is exactly where manipulation gets its foothold, by exploiting these very human needs. Flattery? It works because it disarms us and makes us feel loyal. Trauma can be weaponized to make certain ideas impossible to challenge. And even our own empathy, if we don't have strong boundaries, can be twisted and used against us. It's a pretty effective playbook for leveraging our own emotions to get us to comply. So you might be thinking, this is all just, small-scale stuff. But what happens when these psychological tactics get scaled up, like to the level of national strategy? Well, this isn't just a theory. There's a long, documented history of governments creating incredibly detailed plans to deceive their own citizens and literally manufacture reality. Yeah, this desire to engineer what the public thinks, it's not a new thing. Just look at this timeline from the 20th century. You see a clear pattern of official deception, from the FBI's COINTELPRO program, which targeted domestic movements, to secret proposals for starting wars. These were not accidents. They were deliberate, thought-out plans to control the narrative. And if you want to know just how extreme these plans can get, you have to look at Operation Northwoods. This was a declassified proposal, unanimously approved by the Joint Chiefs of Staff back in 1962. It was a literal recipe for false flag terrorism against American citizens, all to create a pretext for war with Cuba. Now, President Kennedy shot it down, but the fact that it was even dreamed up and approved at that level is just staggering. And this control wasn't just about staging physical events. It was about controlling what people thought about those events. Take COINTELPRO, for example. The FBI didn't just spy on groups, they actively planted fake stories in the media and even created fake documentaries to completely destroy their reputations. The blueprint is pretty clear. If you can control the information that people see, you can control their reality. Okay, let's switch gears. Let's move from those overt, cloak and dagger plans to something way more subtle, but maybe even more powerful: the control that's built right into our economic system. Because let's be honest, sometimes the most effective prison is one that doesn't have any bars at all. So you see this number on the screen, $24 an hour. What is that? Well, get this, that's what the U.S. federal minimum wage would be today if it had simply kept up with worker productivity since the 1960s. The huge gap between that number and the reality we live in, well, it shows you a core mechanism of economic control. Pay has been completely decoupled from the value people actually create. And this system gets locked in place by debt. For millions of people, inescapable debt, from student loans, from medical bills, it forces them into the job market on pretty much whatever terms are offered. It radically limits their choices, it delays major life events, and it creates a state of modern-day bondage. Some people call it neo-servitude, where you're not bound to a lord, you're bound to a lender. See, this whole system works because it's not just about the money. It's a whole web of economic pressure, psychological conditioning, and cultural messages that all reinforce each other. Job precarity and runaway consumerism, they work together to create what some analysts call a modern plantation logic, a system that keeps people in line without physical chains, just by normalizing dependency and making it hard to even imagine another way of living. And that brings us right to our doorstep, to the present day. Because right now, we are seeing all these different forms of control. The psychological tricks, the political deception, the economic pressures, they're all converging into a brand new technological infrastructure. And this thing has the potential to be the most powerful system of control ever created. You might have heard of the old propaganda model, right? It explained how mass media manufactures consent. Well, in the digital age, that model has been put on steroids. The old filters are still there, but they're way more powerful. Media ownership is now tech giant gatekeeping. Advertising has morphed into full-blown surveillance capitalism. But the most powerful new filters? They're the algorithms themselves, which curate our individual realities and enforce ideology at a massive scale. So, the first pillar of this new architecture is biometric identity. And this is not just about unlocking your phone with your face. This is about creating a permanent, unchangeable digital ID based on your unique biology. The scary part, if this data gets breached, you can't just get a new password for your face. It enables mass surveillance on a scale we've never seen before, linking your physical body to your digital life permanently. The second pillar is central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. By replacing physical cash with state-issued digital money, financial privacy could become a thing of the past. But here's the real kicker: programmable money. Imagine a world where a government could restrict what you're allowed to buy, or maybe automatically link your spending, which is tied to your biometric ID, to something like a social credit or a carbon score. This is where control becomes exclusion. Money stops being a tool for freedom and becomes a direct lever for enforcing compliance. And the third pillar is an AI-generated reality. With deepfakes getting better every day and AI content farms just flooding the internet with junk, the very line between what's real and what's artificial is starting to dissolve. This creates something called the liar's dividend, where any real piece of evidence, no matter how solid, can just be dismissed as a fake. Our information space is becoming a hyperreal circus, managed by algorithms that are designed to keep us outraged and clicking, not informed. Okay, so after all of that heavy stuff, the big question becomes, what can you actually do? This last part is all about shifting from just understanding the system to actually reclaiming your own agency within it. It's about how to start building your own mental firewall. And this is really the fundamental question, isn't it? When so many forces, psychological, economic, technological, are all pushing you towards compliance, towards just playing the game, how do you even start to push back? Well, it all begins with a conscious choice. I absolutely love this quote because it's so simple, but it's also incredibly subversive. This system thrives when you tie your self-worth to your productivity. It wants you constantly busy, constantly consuming, constantly engaging. So to simply rest, to be still, to declare that you have value even when you're not producing anything, that is a profound act of resistance. And this is where your agency truly begins. The very act of understanding these systems, the stuff we've been talking about, that is your most critical line of defense. Awareness is your #1 tool. Knowing the psychological hooks, seeing the economic constraints for what they are, recognizing the technological architecture, this knowledge is the foundation of your mental firewall. It lets you start seeing the choices where before you thought there were none. And that's the thought I want to leave you with. This entire architecture of control, from top to bottom, is designed to keep you on the board, engaged, playing by its rules. But once you can see the rules and you really understand the stakes, you realize you have another option. You can start to consciously decide which parts of the game you no longer wish to play.